All right. Well, hello, everybody. We're here to welcome Rick Clemon. Today's episode is episode number 45. It's not just about what you do, but who you bring to the table. And so today we're welcoming Rick Clemon, who is the managing partner of Clemon Consulting. Rick, nice to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, of course, great to see you as always. And then I think, as you're aware, right, we always have that fun little question that we ask. What is a fun networking event that you've done recently?
So I know some people might find this one a little bit different. There's a group that I am quite friendly with, and they co-host a Clays and Steaks event, which is skeet shooting, followed up by a very nice steak dinner. And that would probably be one of the more interesting networking events that I go to. Very well attended, like 12 to 15 groups of 4 people, plus more than that at dinner.
So I'm assuming it's like not good form though to like walk up and try to network with somebody while they're shooting skeet. So
generally speaking, yeah, you don't want to get in front of the barrel. But as long as you're standing behind, there's one person shooting and then there's 3 people behind watching, and then you rotate through. I've been to that one a few times, and the same group actually helps with the Matt Light Foundation's shooting event as well, which is another really fun event.
That's really fun.
That is a really cool event. I think that might be one of the most unique things.
Yeah. Did you do?
I was going to say it's a little bit out there.
Do you do it in Massachusetts, or do you have to go up to New Hampshire to do it?
In Massachusetts, we do it up in Burlington. That one's in Burlington, and then the Light Foundation event's usually down in Rhode Island.
Nice.
So is Burlington, is that at the game club? I'm trying to remember. I know there's a place that I drive by in Burlington, so I'm curious.
Like where it's
kind of off the backside by the mall. But
hey, Rick, you had me at steaks. Yeah, I guess
you would like the dinner, Steve. You would love the dinner.
You need to have Steven come and bring wine for one of these. Yes,
right.
I would agree.
Although I think you should probably only drink the wine before you shoot. I mean, after you shoot, not before, because I don't know.
Generally speaking, guns and alcohol, not a great combination.
Yeah.
Guns and
wine.
Do
the guns first and the alcohol after.
It's kind of like doing the go-karting. You know, it's a lot more fun when you drink beforehand. But their insurance policies frown upon it.
We're gonna have to edit that part now.
So Rick, tell us. Obviously, Steven and I know who you are and what you do, but can you tell our audience who you are, what you do? Tell us everything.
Sure thing. So, Clemon Consulting provides a wide range of services supporting companies navigating transformational growth. Now, that's a very broad blanket statement. The core focus is in around accounting and finance, from strategic business partner fractional CFO work to M&A financial due diligence, buy-side readiness, sell-side readiness, technical accounting projects. So if companies are having a difficult time addressing the nuances of US GAAP and their auditors are pressing them for more information than they know how to answer, we step in and provide that service. A lot of times we get brought in by the audit partners because the clients themselves, the audited companies, can't get through certain transactions. So we'll get brought in to spearhead those initiatives. We don't do audit work. We don't do tax work. We support companies navigating those complexities.
And Rick, how long have you been doing this for?
Oh God, how old am I?
I guess
he started being like 5 or something. Is
that? I've had my firm now reactivated for a little bit over 2 years, but I've been doing this since I left Ernst & Young back in 2008. And then I had a little bit of a long stint where I went in-house in corporate America, which is where I learned how to be the strategic business partner, learned how to be a CFO because I was a seated CFO for a great many years. So working with boards, investors, helping the companies navigate that growth, really understanding what it means to own the implications of the decisions you're making. So many consultants, they make a decision, they write a position paper, they do whatever it is that they do. But a year, 2 years later, when people are asking, hey, why did the company do something? They're not around anymore to answer those questions. I've been there. I know exactly what it means to be sitting there trying to address those questions and concerns. So bring a very different perspective to the work than a lot of my peers.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. It's interesting because I won't go into the details, but I was in a weird conversation this morning where somebody who'd basically never worked in the corporate world was telling me that I was wrong about something that happens in the corporate world. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, that's interesting, but
Right?
I got 25 years of experience that would say you're wrong, but whatever. I was like, sure, you're right. I don't know.
Let's just not argue. You're right. Even though you're not.
Right. I learned how to capitulate in the corporate world.
The good old
Right.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, anyways, and just
moving right along. Anyway, well, that's
great. That's an interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing.
yeah. Oh, I never thought about it that way. So cool.
Well, so I have a question for you as we're talking about sort of the corporate world versus the either solopreneur or kind of startup founder-led company kind of world or whatever it is how did you see networking within? I mean, obviously we talk about networking, but how did you see networking differently when you were in a corporate role versus when you are outside of that corporate role?
There's obviously a much lower value proposition emphasis on the networking side of things when you're in industry, especially when you're in the finance chair. I did attend a number of events while I was the seated CFO, industry-specific events, knowledge learning events, and then the occasional social networking events. But today, like the networking groups that we all belong to as part of our professional career, I never would have joined those as a seated CFO. There was no point in joining ACG or XPX or USA 500 as a seated CFO. The CFO Leadership Council, on the other hand, third Thursday, Amelia, those were great events that I enjoyed going to all the time as a seated CFO, but the other events that I do on a grander scale now, those wouldn't have come into play.
Do you feel like I always feel like, and I certainly had that experience. I mean, I just had never had any reason to network with anyone. And so I find it's interesting now, like I'll reach out to people who are still in sort of the corporate roles and the companies that I used to work in and whatever. And some of them are like, oh, it's so nice to hear from you. And others is like, why are you talking to me?
Isn't that so weird?
I find it so weird now. I think I would have thought, I think that when I was in those roles, I probably would have been like, why are you talking to me? But now I'm like, it's cool to connect with people. You never know what could come of it.
That's a lot of it, is you just don't know, and you don't know who you're going to need surrounding you at a different point in time. And I can tell you without reservation that the people that I met through my advisory services career added a lot of value to the work that I did when I was in industry in the seated in-house positions. So it's great to have that network to come along with me. But building upon it wasn't a core focus. It's interesting because I go to certain events today, and there will be members of industry there, CEOs, VPs of operations, CFOs, and we're talking about the ACG and the XPX and AM and AA type events. And I feel a little bit for those people in those events, in those venues, not because they shouldn't be there. They should be there. But it's got to be a little bit like being a minnow around a pool of sharks. Everyone there, oh, wait a minute, there's an operating company over there.
Yeah, Yeah, no,
Well,
so Rick, that's a very pertinent and appropriate descriptor, right? Because certainly having gone to a few of the events now with CFO hat on, right, and having the company on there,
Mhm.
that's certainly exactly what it's been, right? And the number of reach outs that you get in advance, during, post, it's been really interesting.
Oh yeah.
So no, fully agree with you.
So like the event, Amelia, that you co-sponsor
Yeah,
and the one that I co-sponsor, which is very similar to yours, those are far more intimate.
right.
And being an operator, being an executive in one of those settings all day long, it's very comfortable. It's non-threatening. You meet good people. There's great support providers there. But the sponsors are really trying to bring in operators and build out the networking of the Boston business community, as opposed to the M&A focus groups that it's all of your audit firms, your law firms, your QAV providers, your wealth advisors, all of those, that it would be a little bit intimidating to be one of 3 operators in a room full of 150 service providers.
Yeah, it's tough. And then, it's hard as a service provider because you're there not looking for other service providers most of the time. And
Mhm.
then as a seated CFO or somebody who's really ingrained with a company, then you're just standing there and you're just bombarded with sales pitches.
Mhm.
And it's not productive for anyone.
No, not really.
So I truly do enjoy the events where there's really more of a curated list and a thoughtful approach of, okay, who do we want in the room? Why do we want these people in the room? What do they have in common? And how can we bring them together and converse in a way that's valuable for everyone?
Oh yeah.
Now, Rick, I'm curious, coming from in-house seated CFO, I guess you were in-house kind of corporate side, went on your own, went back in-house, went back out on your own. Tell us all about that journey, because I feel like it's a fun story.
So when I was in consulting back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, I absolutely loved what I did. It was me to a T. I used the analogy of, remember when we were all back in junior high or in early high school, and that first date, someone asked you out or you asked someone out and they said yes, and how energized and how invigorated you felt, like everything was just cloud 9, right? Energy coursing through your veins. When I got offered the job to leave Ernst & Young and go into consulting, that is exactly how I felt. I could not stop pacing the conference room of the office that I was in. I knew that's what I was meant to do. Well, I went into that when I had 2 young children, and went into consulting, and all of a sudden my travel calendar went from a little bit here and there with audit to traveling almost nonstop.
Wow.
Working, there was work-life balance in public accounting was arguably better than when I was in consulting with the firm that I was with.
Crazy to think about.
Right? I was working a ton, but I loved almost every minute of what I did. My wife, on the other hand, not so much. So when a client offered me a job to stay full time, we had fixed a pretty significant issue for them, and they walked into my office, said, "It's pretty obvious we don't have the right team in place. We'd like you to stay." Called my wife, told her what happened, and she said, "You're taking it." I said, "But I love what I do." She goes, "Your kids are young. They don't want to say goodnight to you over FaceTime. They want to know who you are. You're taking it. We want you home." So I went into industry, and as I worked my way up to CFO, but I was not happy. Professionally, I was not happy. I loved learning to be a strategic business partner. I loved learning a different part of the business that I wasn't getting in my technical accounting role. But I wasn't happy working for one company. and answering the same questions week after week after month. So I said to my wife at the end of 6 years with this company that if I didn't find something that I was really passionate about, I was going back to consulting. And in 2018, I started Clemon Consulting. I then became a partner with a professional services firm by the name of Tech CXO. I was there for almost 3 years when my anchor client went through sell-side M&A, and they made me part of the value proposition at the closing table. They put a very aggressive offer in front of me, a lot of equity, and basically said, we're either overpaying for this asset or you're a fool for not going on the ride with us. Which is it? So I converted to full-time and loved the company, loved its trajectory. Unfortunately for all of us on the leadership team, about a year in, we lost our major customer, which took it from a growth story to a turnaround. And my wife came to me around about the same time, and she said to me, Rick, you're miserable. You're just miserable. You're no fun to be around. You're carrying around all this stress. When you're in consulting, you shine. When you're seated CFO for a company, you're just not a happy man. So when this ride is over, you're going back to consulting and you're never looking back. And in June of 23, we relaunched Clemon Consulting, and here we are.
A wise woman.
She knows me better than I know myself.
We love to hear that.
As you sort of ramped up to relaunch Clemon Consulting, because you had sort of done this before, is how did you approach kind of building your sales pipeline networking differently than you had done it the first time? Like, were there things that you had learned the first time around that played?
100%. So as a professional in services, as a solopreneur or a small shop, we prospect, fill up the sales pipeline. All of a sudden you close a bunch of work and you just get to work and you stop prospecting. You just stop doing the networking. You're no longer out there. All you're doing is eating what you've killed. And then all of a sudden you finish all the work. And I rolled off an assignment, the big assignment that I had won, rolled off of it right before Halloween of 2018, sorry. And I'm like, wait a minute, if I don't find another project to work on in the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be riding the pine until January.
Right.
Because people are going to go away come Thanksgiving through the end of the year. So I recognized the error in my ways at that point in time. When I relaunched Clemon Consulting, I made a conscious decision that I will never stop networking. I don't care how busy I am. I don't have a free moment in my day right now, which is a beautiful thing. I'm going to be out 4 nights this week.
Right.
I will never stop prospecting, because not only am I trying to build for myself, I'm trying to build a firm. I'm feeding other people and their families at this point, and I've got to keep that sales lead gen running at all times.
Geez, Rick, you're going to beat me in terms of networking events this week.
Debatable. I know you too well.
Steven's pretty.
I know. I think it's hard to beat Steven. If we had a contest for who are the most networking events in a week, Steven would win every single
every week.
But he's the wine guy.
I know.
Yeah, I bring happiness.
Yes, you do.
You do. Happiness in a bottle.
Well, so it's interesting for me because I know Steven and Amelia know this, but for the last couple of months, I just have been like really on this heavy one-on-one meeting kick. Like, and I just my days are just block like all day long, one-on-one meetings, mixed with client meetings and so forth. And so I haven't been doing as much of the event stuff, but it's like, I don't know. I think you have to strike a balance there, because the one-on-one meetings are great, but it's a little bit like the one-on-one meetings tend to be like kind of the fish, like I need to go to another pond somewhere. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but that's my take.
Tell me this: when we go to these events, you've been doing it long enough. You walk into a room, half the people there already.
But it's fun.
It is fun. You walk in, it's like going back to your high school reunion, except you saw the people 2 days ago. And it's great, but you're in there to meet new people.
Right.
And it's always an interesting conversation when you're in the middle of a conversation with someone new and someone you already know comes over and works their way in, which is great. But how often do you find when you first walk in, you start socializing with the people you've already, your comfort zone?
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you're looking at your watch like, oh my God, this ends in 20 minutes and I haven't met a new person.
Right.
Yeah. What I've started doing at those events, because I understand there's been events where like, so many people and maybe you haven't seen them in like a month or two, which in grand scheme of things is not actually that long of a time. But they'll come like I've been at events where I've been there for an hour. I check my watch. I haven't moved 2 feet because people keep coming over to say hi. And then all of a sudden you're like, crap. So what I've tried to do is then just excuse myself. Like, oh my God, I actually see someone who I've never met before here. I want to go introduce myself.
Exactly.
I love that.
And then picking which events are you going to go to, right? So next Thursday, there's 3 events I could be at 5:30 next Thursday, not a week from Thursday. Which one do you go to? And ultimately, it's like, where are there going to be the most new people?
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
What's going to bring
That's
you
the way I'm going to evaluate is where's the greatest opportunity for me to meet new people that I can expand my network and maybe add a little bit of value versus rehashing conversations with someone that I might not have seen in a month.
Yep. Yeah, well, it's actually interesting. I was at an event at Encore last week, and I don't know if you've been in the backyard or back lawn area tape there. That is such a cool spot for an event. Highly recommend it if you haven't. But so this is for Meet Boston for hospitality, and one of the things that I often do, right, and I think all of us do, is you're in a conversation, right? You bring somebody else in to meet you, and this I was impressed at how masterfully this person had done it, where I was talking about the types of people that I was trying to meet, and she was doing the same. But in doing that, she's like, wait. And she literally like dragged me over to meet these 2 other people. Right. And so when you actually see that in action, and again, I think that's what we all do, but to actually see others do that well in action. And I may even be more intentional going forward to say, hey, we know each other. We're having a great conversation, but right, we're all here of actually meeting other people. And so to actually kind of preempt it with, if you see somebody here interesting for me, bring them over, I'll do exactly the same. Right. And I think actually being more intentional about that could at least reduce those sort of things where, you're all of a sudden an hour later and you haven't moved or haven't talked to somebody new. But that was really interesting for me.
Well, it's such a. Go ahead, sorry.
So I was at an ACG event at the roof deck at 53 State, not last week, the week before. And I met an individual who does market research studies for buyers. And there was someone standing across the way that I know that is a outside biz dev, corp dev service for buyers, companies trying to go on an acquisition tear. I'm like, you know what? You two've got to meet, and being able to pull those strings and pull them together, knowing who people are. The value is not just knowing the people. It's really knowing who they are and what they do. And I'll be in these networking situations where I'm introducing people. And when I give the introduction to, please meet Amelia from Supporting Strategies, she's doing the outsourced bookkeeping and controller services. They'll look at me and say, he did a better job than I could at introducing myself. You've got to know your people.
Yeah.
Because that's where the real value comes in, making real warm introductions and being able to say why this is the person that you should know, not just it's someone you should know, but the why you should know them.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point to make, Rick, especially when we're talking like at some point, at some level, we're all in sales here, whether or not you want to say you are or not. I don't really care. Like in some level you are. But there's a really interesting statistic about sales where it's, the cold calls, it's like a 5% to close. If you get an introduction where it's just like, hey, Rick, meet Jeff, you should talk. It's like 50-50. But if I say, hey, Rick, you should meet Jeff because of these reasons, he's looking for this, and I think you can help him here, and having that extra level of trust and understanding and that trusted advisor relationship, those deals end up having like an 80% close rate.
Absolutely.
And it's all about exactly what you just said, understanding, and I think it builds trust on all ends too. Like Rick knows my business. Now he knows his business because he knows Jeff's business. Let's all make this work.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I think the combination of those facts with such a high percentage, and also to what Rick said with a good being able to introduce, which I think is so critical, right? Really knowing the person. I think going forward, all of you just need to send emails to your top contacts and say, meet Dionysus. And just leave it at that. Make the intro to me, and I think I probably have 95% to it.
You could probably outdo that because everybody needs wine. I get it.
Exactly.
Well, listen, I promised Rick before we got on that this was going to fly by, and it has flown by. This has been a great conversation. I think, as you know, we like to finish up and close our episode by asking everybody what's one cool networking event you're going to in the next in the near future. So I'll let you start, and then the rest of us will jump in.
So I'm going on an Odyssey dinner cruise tomorrow night for networking.
Oh, wow.
That one's going to be fun.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds really fun.
I feel like I didn't get on any boat. Oh, no, that's not true. I did get on a boat this year because we went.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, Rick, before we forget, what's the best way to connect with you, reach you, if people want to have a conversation, buy your services?
The easiest way to reach out is rick@clemonconsulting.com. Happy to have a conversation with essentially anyone about any topic.
We love that.
Although I don't have the winning lottery numbers, unfortunately.
How dare you?
Then you're out.
Pick him off.
Well, I would say, let's see. I'll go next. But I'm trying to think. I've got a couple of events coming up in the next week or so. This week I mentioned before, I just have a lot of one-on-one calls. But next week I think I've got like 3 events going on, and I'll just pick the first one, which is Stephen, you actually introduced me to this one, I think, but the eConnects event that Joe Anderson runs at the Crafts Food Hall in Waltham. So it's always interesting. It's always got some good topics, and it's always fun to meet. I still have conversations with some of the other panelists and so forth that I've seen at those events, so those are always good. I'll pass it over to Amelia, go for it.
This week's really busy. I'm excited. It's Startup Week Boston, so there's tons of events going on. So I'm actually going to be volunteering at Startup Week Boston for a few days. But another event I want to highlight is the FEI Boston Future Leaders end of summer social. So we're doing that at 6 o'clock at the warehouse on Wednesday. So anybody who's interested in FEI or, a little bit earlier on in their careers who's listening, I would love for you guys to stop by and check it out.
Awesome. Stephen, bring us home.
Yeah, I think, so it is actually, believe it or not, quiet-ish for me this week. I'm doing more of the one-on-ones, that sort of thing, and actually trying to get some work done. I have a ton of events coming up in the latter part of the month into October because everybody wants to do their wine tastings, their wine dinners, their wine whatevers. So I've literally been crafting menus, wine and food menus, the better part of the day today. So all that said, one of the ones that I'm doing, actually there's 2 things. So I'm sponsoring the Boston Cup. So if anybody is around towards the end of the month, this is pretty cool. There's literally 100, classic cars, supercars, exotic cars, you name it, that drive onto the Boston Common. And so I am sponsoring that event because luxury wine, luxury vehicles, I think, again, not at the same time, but do go very well together. So that's one thing. And then the other not-for-profit that I'm working with is Andre's Institute for Art. Their symposium starts this weekend. It's in Brookline, New Hampshire. And I'll be doing a series of wine tastings with them for their foundation. So a lot of fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rick. This has been an excellent conversation. Really great to hear about your story and your business and your take on networking. We really appreciate it. We will see everyone next week, but thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Rick.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.